The alien sky burned in shades of violet and silver as the human ship entered the great city of Vareth. It was a world unlike any Alara Ven had ever seen. Tall crystal towers rose above glowing rivers, and the air hummed with strange energy. Alara was a human diplomat, respected, brave, and known for her calm voice. She had come to the alien capital with her little daughter Mira, hoping to finish a peace treaty between humans and the alien race called the Zirans. They were powerful, ancient, and ruled by a man known as Lord Kael Rith. The Zirans believed in strict laws, old traditions, and honor written in blood. One wrong step could bring punishment. One small act could change everything. Alara knew that. But her daughter was too young to understand. Mira was curious, kind, and loved shiny things. When the guards led them through the Hall of Ancients, Mira saw a glowing crystal floating above a golden stand. Before Alara could stop her, the child reached out and touched it. A sharp sound filled the air. A deep hum that made the walls shake, the guards shouted, and the hall filled with a red light. Alara grabbed her daughter and pulled her back, but it was too late. The alien soldiers surrounded them with energy spears glowing bright blue. Their faces were cold, their eyes full of judgment. One of them shouted that the human child had broken sacred law. The punishment was death. Alara's heart stopped. She could not believe what she was hearing. She fell to her knees, holding her daughter close, begging for mercy. She tried to explain it was an accident. Her daughter was only 7, but the guards did not move. They said only the Emperor himself could decide her fate. Moments later, the great doors opened and Lord Kael Rith entered. He was tall, his skin dark violet, eyes like molten silver, and his presence made the air tremble. He wore a long robe of black and gold, symbols of power shining on his chest. Everyone bowed, but Alara did not. She only held her daughter tighter. Kael Rith looked down at the crying child, then at Alara. His voice was calm but sharp like steel. "Your child has broken the sacred law of my ancestors," he said. "By our code, her life is forfeit." Alara's voice shook as she answered. "Please, my lord, she is only a child, she did not know." For a long moment, Kael Rith said nothing, his eyes cold, thoughtful, and distant. Then slowly he turned away, his cloak whispering against the marble floor. The guards started to pull Mira from her mother's arms. Alara screamed and reached for her. Crying out in fear, Kael Rith raised his hand, and the guards froze. He turned back, his expression unreadable. "There is another way," he said quietly. "If you wish your daughter to live, you must pay her debt yourself." Alara looked up, trembling. "I will do anything," she whispered. His eyes glowed faintly as he spoke the words that would change her life forever. "By our law, a life saved must serve a life owed," Kael Rith said. "You will become my concubine, bound by alien law. Until your debt is paid?" The hall went silent. No one dared to breathe. Alara stared at him in disbelief, her voice breaking. "Concubine? You mean—" "Yes," he interrupted softly. "Your freedom for her life, one life for another. That is our way." Her heart pounded, her thoughts raced. She could not believe this cruel choice. She looked at Mira, her little girl shaking with fear, tears running down her small face in that moment. Alara knew there was no choice at all. She took a deep breath and looked at the alien emperor with steady eyes. "If this is what it takes," she said, "then I accept." Kael Rith studied her silently, then gave a small nod. "So be it," he said. And the guards lowered their weapons. The glowing crystal in the center of the room dimmed, and the red lights faded. Mira clung to her mother's leg, whispering, "Mama." "I'm scared," Alara smiled weakly. "It's going to be okay," she whispered, though her heart was breaking inside. Kael Rith turned to his soldiers and said, "Take the child to the care wing. She is not to be harmed." Then he looked back at Alara, his silver eyes colder than ice. "You will come with me," he said. "Your new life begins tonight." Alara felt her strength slipping, but she stood tall as the doors closed behind her. She took one last look at her daughter. That image burned in her heart. Her daughter safe but far away. The echo of the Emperor's words stayed in her mind like a curse. Bound by alien law, she had traded her freedom for love, and her future for a single breath of mercy. Alara woke in a room made of light and stone. The walls shimmered faintly with energy that moved like water. She sat up slowly, her heart still heavy with the memory of what she had done. Her daughter was alive, but Alara herself was no longer free. She was now a prisoner wrapped in gold, bound by alien law. She looked around. The chamber was beautiful but cold. The bed was made of smooth silver. and strange patterns glowed softly across the floor. She could hear faint whispers of the alien guards outside, speaking in a language that sounded like wind over glass. When the door opened, 2 Xeran women entered, their faces painted with silver lines, their long robes glowing softly. They bowed and said in their calm voices, "We serve in the Emperor's house. You are now part of it." Alara nodded, too tired to speak. They gave her a flowing gown made of soft blue light and asked her to follow. They led her through long halls that stretched endlessly, filled with alien art and strange moving lights that floated in the air. On the walls were carvings of Kelrith's victories, wars fought among the stars, and his rise to power over 1,000 worlds. Every alien that passed stared at her, some with curiosity, others with disgust. A few whispered words she could not understand, but their tone was clear. They saw her not as a diplomat now, but as property, a human concubine, a shameful mark in the eyes of the Empire. She tried to keep her head high, remembering who she was, remembering that she had done this for Mira. Her daughter's face was the only thing keeping her heart from breaking. The great hall opened before her, a vast space of white stone and golden light. Thousands of aliens stood silently on either side as Kelrith entered, his long steps calm and sure, his robe shining with royal symbols, his silver eyes cold as the stars. When he sat on his high throne, all sound stopped. He looked down at Alara and spoke. "This human stands before the court of Xeran law. Her child's crime has been forgiven by royal decree. Her debt is now her own, and she shall serve as my concubine under sacred oath." The crowd murmured softly, alien eyes glowing in the dim light. Alara felt her knees weaken, but she refused to fall. Her voice trembled, but she managed to say, "I accept the law of your world. I keep my promise." Kelrith's expression did not change, but for a moment, a flicker of something, maybe respect, passed through his eyes. The court was dismissed. The crowd left slowly, whispering words that burned into Alara's ears. Human slave, cursed by mercy, bound by law. After the hall emptied, Kelrith stood and walked down from his throne. His steps echoed softly. He stopped before her and said quietly, "Do not fear, you are safe here, as long as you obey." His tone was calm, almost gentle, but the power in his voice left no doubt. She was his possession now. He turned to leave, but paused and added, "Your daughter is well. She will be educated and cared for. She will live in the gardens of the upper wing. You may see her once every cycle." Alara's breath caught. Relief and pain twisted inside her. "Thank you," she whispered. Kelrith did not reply. He only said, "Serve with honor and no harm will come to her." In the days that followed, Alara learned the customs of the palace, the silent bow before the Emperor, the endless rituals, and the cold glances of the other concubines. They were from many worlds, beautiful, strange, and distant, but none spoke to her. She was human, and in their eyes, that made her less. Yet sometimes, in the quiet of the night, she felt someone watching her, and when she turned, she would see Kelrith standing in the shadows of the corridor, silent and thoughtful, his expression unreadable. She began to notice things others ignored. The way he dismissed cruel ministers, the way he listened when servants were mistreated. There was something different about him, something hidden beneath the armor of his authority. One night, she overheard 2 alien advisors whispering near the crystal garden. "The Emperor breaks his own code for the human," one said. "He risks the wrath of the High Council." Alara's heart raced. What did that mean? Why would saving her child put Kelrith in danger? That night she could not sleep. She walked to the balcony and looked at the alien sky. Moons of blue and silver floating like ghosts. She whispered softly, "Mira, my little one, I will find a way to protect you. Even here." Behind her a low voice spoke. "And who will protect you?" "Alara Ven." She turned quickly. Kelrith stood there, his cloak fluttering in the night breeze. "I did not mean to disturb you," she said. Her voice shaking, he stepped closer, his gaze steady. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "A human woman I once knew. She defied me too." Before Alara could answer, he turned away and disappeared into the shadows. The wind carried his last words through the night, leaving Alara cold and full of questions. Somewhere deep inside her heart, a small spark of curiosity began to grow. She wanted to know who he was, and why a man with so much power had chosen mercy instead of blood. But one truth was clear: her life was no longer her own. And in this alien palace of light and silence, every step she took was part of a game she did not yet understand. The days in the alien palace passed like slow rivers of silence, and Alara began to learn the rhythm of life inside the court of Kelrith. Each morning began with ceremony, glowing light flooding the halls as alien servants bowed before the Emperor. Alara stood among them, quiet and unseen, a human shadow in a kingdom of silver and flame. Her duties were simple. She served in silence, learning the gestures, the greetings, the laws of obedience. But every night when the palace grew still, her thoughts returned to her daughter, Mira, and the heavy price she had paid for her life. She often asked herself if she had done the right thing. The memory of Kelrith's words echoed in her mind. A life saved must serve a life owed. Sometimes she thought she saw pity in his eyes, sometimes only cold distance, but something was changing, not only in her heart but in the air of the palace itself. There were whispers in the corridors, rumors that reached even the lowest servants. They said the Emperor had broken sacred law by protecting a human. They said the High Council was watching, and that soon judgment would fall one evening. As the red suns dipped below the horizon, Alara walked through the quiet garden of lights. Strange plants glowed with their own energy, petals made of glass and roots that whispered faint sounds. There she met an old alien scholar named Thin, his skin pale blue and his eyes clouded with age. He bowed slowly and said, "You should not walk here alone, human. The court is full of hidden eyes." Alara frowned and asked softly, "Do you fear for me, or do you watch for the Emperor's orders?" Thin smiled sadly. "Perhaps both," he said. "You are a piece in a game older than you can imagine." Alara's heart tightened. "What game?" she asked. Thin looked around before leaning close, his voice a whisper. "The Emperor defied the Council when he spared your child. By their law, humans are the lost kind, forbidden to be touched or protected, yet he risked everything to save one. Ask yourself why." Before Alara could answer, heavy footsteps echoed through the garden. Thin straightened quickly and bowed. Kelrith appeared, his robe flowing like night itself. He looked at Thin sharply. "Leave us," he said, and the old scholar obeyed, disappearing into the shadows. For a long moment, Kelrith said nothing. He simply watched Alara, the silver light reflecting in his eyes. "You should not speak with him," he said quietly. "The Council already suspects too much." Alara lifted her chin, her voice trembling but steady. "What do they suspect?" "That you saved my daughter out of kindness." Kelrith's lips curved faintly, not in a smile but something close to pain. "Kindness is not a word my people understand," he said. "They see it as weakness." He turned away and walked to the edge of the garden, his voice low. "Long ago, a human woman lived among us. She believed peace was possible between our kinds. She died because of that belief." Alara's eyes widened. "You knew her?" she asked. Kelrith's shoulders stiffened. "She was my bondmate," he said softly. "She was killed by those who now sit in the Council. They called her unclean, an outsider who corrupted our blood." Alara felt a strange ache inside her chest, a sadness that mixed with understanding. "So you saved me because of her," she whispered. "You saved Mira because of what you lost." Kelrith turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps," he said. "Or perhaps I saved you because I am tired of watching history repeat itself." A sudden sound broke the silence. Distant footsteps, hushed voices. Kelrith looked sharply toward the corridor. His hand went to the small device at his belt. Alara could see tension in his face. "You must go," he said firmly. "Now." "But why?" she asked. Confused, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because they are coming for you, the ministers. They believe your death will restore balance. They want to erase my shame." Fear struck her heart. "What about Mira?" she whispered. He looked into her eyes, his silver gaze fierce and full of something she could not name. "Your daughter will not be harmed," he said, "but you must trust me. Do not leave your chamber tonight." Before she could speak, he was gone, his shadow swallowed by the darkness of the palace halls. That night, Alara sat alone in her room, the silence heavy and sharp. She could hear faint movements outside her door, voices in the alien tongue, low and angry. She held the pendant Mira had made for her back on Earth, a small crystal tied with thread, and whispered, "Hold on, my love. I will keep my promise." Suddenly, a soft thud came from the balcony. Alara froze, then turned slowly. A cloaked figure stepped through the curtains, tall and silent. Before she could cry out, the figure raised a hand and said, "Do not scream. I am not your enemy." The cloak fell and the light revealed an alien woman with bright golden eyes. I am Sareth, she said quietly, the Emperor's spy. He sent me to protect you. Alara stared at her, heart pounding. Why would he do that if I am just a slave? Sareth's expression darkened. Because you are not just a slave. You are the key to something far greater. And the Council fears you more than you can understand. Before Alara could speak again, the alarm crystals began to glow red. The sound of guards shouting echoed through the hall. Sareth grabbed Alara's arm, pulling her toward the hidden passage behind the mirror wall. Move, she hissed. They have found you. As Alara ran through the dark passage, her mind burned with fear and questions. Who was the Emperor really protecting? Her daughter, or something much bigger than both? And in that moment, under the alien sky, she realized one terrifying truth. Her freedom was gone, but her story was only beginning. The secret passage stretched long and narrow, cold light rippling across the crystal walls as Alara followed Sareth through the shadows. Behind them, the sound of alarms echoed faintly. Like thunder from another world, Sareth moved swiftly, her golden eyes scanning every turn, her voice low but urgent. Stay close, the guards will search every hall. But they won't come this deep. Alara's heart raced, every breath heavy with fear. Where are you taking me? She whispered. To the lower chambers, Sareth replied. The Emperor will meet you there. He ordered your safety at all costs. They finally reached a large metal door that shimmered as it opened, revealing a quiet chamber filled with blue firelight. Kale Rith stood near the center, his tall frame outlined by the glow of an ancient holographic map. When he saw Alara enter, his eyes softened, a brief flicker of relief passing through the silver. You are safe, he said quietly. The council moved sooner than expected. Alara looked around the chamber, her voice trembling. Safe? You call this safe? They were coming to kill me. Kale Rith nodded slowly. Yes, because to them your existence is a threat. You are the reminder of what they fear most, Alara frowned, her confusion deepening. And what is that? She asked. Kale Rith turned off the glowing map, the room falling into a soft blue haze. Hope, he said simply. Long ago, before your people knew of us, there was peace between our races. We shared knowledge, we shared trade, even friendships. But power and pride destroyed it. He walked closer, his robe whispering over the floor. My father ruled before me, and he believed humans were dangerous. He led a war that ended with fire on both worlds. Alara listened, her breath slow, the weight of his words pressing on her heart. Kale Rith's expression darkened. During that war, I met someone, he said quietly. Her name was Lyra. She was human like you. A scientist, a dreamer. She believed peace could still be made. He paused, his gaze distant as if seeing another time. She saved my life once during the siege of Oran Gate, but in doing so she broke our law. The council demanded her death. Alara could hear the pain in his voice, calm but heavy. I fought them, he continued, but I was young, not yet emperor. I failed her. They executed her before my eyes. The silence that followed was deep and sharp. Alara felt her throat tighten. She saw now not a cold ruler, but a man carrying a wound that time had never healed. He looked at her again, his eyes reflecting the flicker of blue fire. When your daughter touched the sacred crystal, I saw Lyra's face in hers, the same courage, the same innocence. Alara's eyes filled with tears. So you saved her because of your past, she whispered. Kale Rith shook his head. No, I saved her because I will not repeat the sins of my people. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them carried both pain and understanding. Alara stepped closer. Then why make me your concubine? She asked softly. If you wish to save me, why chain me? Kale Rith's voice lowered. Because it was the only way to protect you under the law. The council cannot question what they see as property. They would have killed you otherwise. Alara's heart trembled. She wanted to be angry, but part of her felt something else, and something confusing, something fragile, she whispered. So my slavery is your shield against them. He looked at her, his eyes full of quiet regret. Yes, and mine as well. Before Alara could answer, Sareth stepped forward, her voice tense. My lord, the council is sending investigators to the palace. They will demand to see the human. Kale Rith's expression hardened. Let them search, but they will find nothing, he said. Sareth bowed, then disappeared into the corridor, leaving them alone in the dim blue light. Alara looked up at Kale Rith again. What will they do if they find me? She asked. He replied calmly. They will execute you, and strip me of my title." A long silence fell between them, and then Kale Reith turned to a small shelf built into the wall. He pressed a crystal, and a small image appeared in the air. It showed a woman, human, smiling with the same kind of soft strength Alara carried in her face. "That is Lyra," he said quietly. "She was like you, brave, stubborn, full of fire." Alara looked at the image, her voice low. "She was beautiful." Kale Reith nodded, his tone distant. "She believed love could heal anything. But the universe is cruel to those who dream." Alara touched her hand to the light. The image flickered softly, and she said, "Maybe she was right. Maybe peace is not a dream, but a choice." Kale Reith's gaze met hers. For the first time, the coldness faded, replaced by something deep, something human. He stepped closer, his voice a whisper. "If peace were a choice, would you make it? Even after what my people did to you?" Alara took a breath, her eyes steady. "I already did. The moment I gave up my freedom for my daughter, for a heartbeat, time seemed to stop. The air between them heavy with unspoken meaning." Then Kale Reith turned away, his voice soft. "You are stronger than you know, Alara Ven. Perhaps stronger than any of us." As he walked toward the door, he added quietly, "Rest now, tomorrow the council arrives. And our true war begins." When he was gone, Alara stood alone, staring at the fading image of the human woman named Lyra. The past and present blended in her mind, two stories tied by loss, courage, and impossible love. She finally understood that Kale Reith was not her jailer alone. He was also a prisoner of his own history. And as the night deepened outside the alien palace, Alara made a silent promise to herself. She would uncover the truth behind the Emperor, behind the law, and behind the secret that bound their worlds together. The night was heavy with silence, the kind of silence that warned of danger. Alara sat near the window of her chamber, watching the glowing city below. The towers of crystal shining under twin moons. Something in the air felt strange, restless, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She touched the small pendant around her neck, the one Kale Reith had given her for protection, its soft pulse calming her, but deep down, she felt that peace would not last. A sudden tremor shook the floor, the walls trembled, and the blue flames in the lamps flickered out. Alara stood quickly, fear gripping her chest. "What was that?" she whispered before she could move. The door burst open and Sereth rushed in, her armor cracked and glowing faintly with alien energy. "Stay back from the window," she warned sharply. "The outer defense walls have been breached." Alara's heart pounded. "Breached by whom?" "The rebellion," Sereth replied, her voice low but fierce. "They are not loyal to the Emperor. They want his throne and your life." Before Alara could speak, a loud explosion echoed through the halls. Shards of crystal rained from above like frozen stars. Sereth grabbed Alara's arm and pulled her into the corridor. "We must move now. The council's guards are fighting among themselves. We cannot trust anyone." They ran through the long passageways, smoke filling the air, the scent of burning metal and ozone thick around them. From every direction came the sounds of battle, shouts in alien tongues, the hum of plasma weapons, the roar of collapsing towers. Alara tried to keep up, but her lungs burned, her heart screaming for her daughter. "Mira," she gasped. "Where is Mira?" "She is safe," Sereth answered without slowing. "The Emperor ordered her hidden in the sanctuary vault before the first strike. But we must reach them before the rebels do." Alara stumbled as another blast threw them forward. The floor cracked open beneath them, and she barely caught the edge of a shattered pillar. Sereth pulled her up with one arm, her golden eyes blazing with determination. "Move," she commanded. "Don't look back." As they turned a corner, they came face to face with a group of rebels, aliens wearing dark armor marked with crimson symbols. Their leader stepped forward, tall, scarred, his voice cold. "The human woman, take her alive. The Emperor will come for her." Sereth pushed Alara behind her, drawing a curved energy blade that glowed like sunlight. "You will not touch her," she growled. The fight was fierce and fast. Sparks flying as blades clashed, Sereth moved like a storm, every motion sharp and graceful. But there were too many, and soon she was forced back. Blood glimmering on her armor, one rebel aimed his weapon at Alara, but before he could fire, a blast of blue energy struck him from behind. Kale Reith appeared through the smoke, his eyes glowing silver with fury, his presence powerful and commanding. "Enough," he thundered, his voice echoing like thunder. "You dare raise arms within my walls? The rebels hesitated. Their leader sneered. Your rule is over, Kael'rith. You betrayed your own kind for a human. Kael'rith lifted his hand. A storm of light burst from his palm. Sending the rebels crashing into the walls, he turned to Ilara. His voice low but urgent. We must leave. Now Ilara stared at him, breathless. You came for me. I swore I would protect you, he replied, his tone hard but his eyes soft. Even if it cost me everything. He guided her through the collapsing halls, every step a race against destruction. Outside, the sky was burning, ships battling in the upper atmosphere, trails of fire streaking across the moons. Kael'rith touched a hidden panel in the wall, opening a secret transport chamber. Get inside, he ordered. Ilara hesitated. What about your people? My people chose war, he said grimly. But I choose you. Sereth entered behind them, blood running down her arm. The Council's guard is gone. The rebellion has reached the throne. Kael'rith's expression darkened. Then this empire is lost for now. They entered the transport, the crystal doors closing behind them with a hiss as the vessel launched into the night. Ilara looked through the glass and saw the palace crumbling, the towers falling like dying stars. Her heart ached not for the place, but for what it meant, a dream of peace now shattered. Kael'rith stood silently, his gaze fixed on the destruction. His jaw tight with pain, Ilara whispered. You lost everything, he turned to her, his voice quiet. Not everything, as long as you and your daughter live. There is still hope. The ship entered the clouds, leaving behind the flames of the Empire. For a long time, neither spoke, the hum of the engines the only sound. Finally, Ilara said softly, Where will we go? Kael'rith looked ahead, his expression unreadable. To a world no one remembers, far from the Council, far from war, where the truth can finally be told. Ilara looked at him, feeling both fear and trust. The truth about what? Kael'rith met her gaze, his silver eyes glowing faintly. About why this war began, and why you were chosen. Outside, the stars grew brighter as they left the burning world behind. Ilara knew that whatever awaited them among the stars, her life would never be the same. And as the ship vanished into the void, the war for peace, love, and survival had only just begun. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to a universe full of secrets. Ilara sat near the window of the small starship, her eyes fixed on the glittering void, her thoughts tangled with fear and wonder. She still heard the echoes of the rebellion, the screams, the fire, the fall of the alien palace that had once seemed eternal. Now she and her daughter were fugitives, traveling with the very man who had once been her captor. Kael'rith stood near the control panel, his hands glowing faintly as he guided the ship through a narrow hyperspace route. His expression was calm, but Ilara could sense the storm beneath it, a weight of pain and regret that ran deeper than space itself. How long until we reach safety? She asked softly. Kael'rith didn't turn, his voice quiet and distant. Not long. The world we go to is hidden beyond the edge of the known stars, a place even the Council has forgotten. Sereth, resting nearby with her armor cracked and stained, looked up. A myth, they call it, the world of Lithera, the birthplace of the Old Ones. Ilara frowned. Old Ones, what are they? Kael'rith glanced at her, his silver eyes catching the light. The first of our kind, the ones who shaped the laws that still bind us, and perhaps the ones who cursed us too. The ship soon drifted out of hyperspace, revealing a world unlike any Ilara had ever seen. It was covered in silver forests that shimmered like mirrors. Rivers of light flowed between mountains that glowed faintly blue. A vast ring of energy circled the planet, humming softly, like the heartbeat of something ancient. Ilara's breath caught. It's beautiful, she whispered. Kael'rith nodded slowly. Yes, and dangerous. This world is alive. It remembers everything. It watches those who enter. As they descended through the silver clouds, Ilara felt a strange pull inside her, as if something deep in her blood was reacting to the planet. When they landed near the edge of a glowing lake, she stepped outside, feeling soft energy brush against her skin, like invisible wind. Mira, who had been asleep during the journey, ran toward her mother, her eyes wide with wonder. Mama, it feels like the stars are singing. Ilara smiled faintly. Maybe they are, she said, holding her daughter close. But when Kael'rith stepped onto the ground, the lake's glow dimmed and the air trembled slightly. Sereth's hand went to her weapon, her voice tense. The planet knows who you are, my lord. It remembers your father's sins. Kale Rith looked at the shimmering water, his tone heavy. Then it also knows I came to make them right. He turned to Alara and Mira. You both carry something that connects to this world. Something ancient, Alara frowned. What do you mean? Kale Rith stepped closer, his gaze serious. When Mira touched the sacred crystal, it reacted to her blood, not because of chance, but because she carries the same energy that once belonged to the old ones. Alara's eyes widened. You mean she's part of them? Not part, he said softly, but chosen, the last key to restoring what was lost. The lake began to ripple, forming shapes of light that rose like spirits. Mira reached out and one of the lights hovered near her hand, glowing brighter with every heartbeat. Alara watched, fear and awe mixing inside her. What is happening? Kale Rith's eyes glowed faintly. The planet is recognizing her. It knows who she is. As the light touched Mira's palm, she gasped, her eyes turning bright blue for a moment. Then fading back to normal, Alara knelt beside her, panic in her voice. Mira, are you all right? Her daughter smiled faintly. It didn't hurt, Mama, it showed me pictures. People with wings of light and a woman who looked like you. Kale Rith knelt beside them, his tone soft. She saw the first memory. The woman she described, her name was Lithera. She was the last old one before the War of Creation. Alara looked at him, confusion and awe in her eyes. But what does this mean for Mira? He met her gaze, his voice grave. It means the Council will never stop hunting her. Because within her lies the power to change everything. The power to end their control forever. Night fell over the silver forest. The sky filled with twin moons and trails of light that looked like living stars. Alara sat near the lake watching Mira sleep peacefully beside the glowing water. Kale Rith approached quietly, sitting a short distance away, the reflection of the moons dancing across his face. He spoke after a long silence. You should hate me, yet you trust me enough to stay. Alara's eyes stayed on the water, her voice calm. I don't trust you completely, but I understand you now. You lost someone once, and you don't want to lose again. Kale Rith nodded slowly. You see more clearly than most of my kind for a moment. The silence between them was warm, not heavy. Alara asked quietly, Will we ever have peace? Kale Rith looked at the stars, his expression unreadable. Peace is not found. It is built piece by piece, sacrifice by sacrifice. Perhaps this time, we will succeed. Alara turned to look at him, her eyes soft but strong. Then let's start building it. Kale Rith gave a small smile, the first true one she had ever seen on his face. Perhaps, Alara Ven, that is why fate brought us together. As the night wind carried the soft hum of the glowing world, Alara felt something new stir within her heart. Not just fear or sorrow, but a spark of hope, fragile and bright, and somewhere deep beneath the silver lake, an ancient power began to awaken, answering the bond that now connected them all. The air on Lithera was calm, almost too calm. The silver trees whispered softly, their light flickering like candle flames before a storm. Alara stood near the edge of the glowing lake, feeling the cool wind brush against her face. She knew something was coming, something that would change everything. Kale Rith had been silent all morning, standing alone near the old temple ruins that shimmered faintly with ancient energy. Sareth guarded the perimeter, her eyes scanning the horizon, her voice sharp. The silence of the stars is never peace. It is warning. Moments later, the sky cracked open. Lightning tore through the clouds, and massive warships descended, dark and gleaming. Carrying the mark of the Council, Alara's breath caught. They found us, she whispered. Kale Rith turned slowly, his expression calm but his eyes burned with light. They were always going to find us. The planet's awakening drew them here. Sareth cursed under her breath. We cannot win this fight. Kale Rith looked at her. We are not here to fight, he said quietly. We are here to end the war. The ships hovered above the forest, their shadows falling across the glowing trees. Then beams of light cut through the air, and the Council's guards appeared. At the center of them stood a tall alien in gold armor, his eyes sharp as knives. Kale Rith of the Fallen Throne, he said coldly. You are charged with treason, consorting with a human, and defying the sacred law. Kale Rith stepped forward, his voice firm. Your laws were built on lies. The counselor raised his hand. Silence, surrender the human woman and the child, and you may yet live. Alara's heart raced. She moved in front of Mira. You'll have to kill me first, she said, her voice shaking but brave. A tense silence followed, then Kelrith spoke again, his voice echoing across the valley. You think you hold power, but the true power lies within the blood you fear, the blood that connects us all. As he spoke, the lake began to glow brighter, its surface pulsing with light that grew stronger with each heartbeat. Mira stepped forward unconsciously, her small hand glowing faintly. The council soldiers aimed their weapons, but Kelrith raised his arm. A wave of blue energy knocked them back without harm. Stop, he said firmly. Look at her. The councilor's eyes widened as the lake rose into the air, forming shapes of light and memory. Visions of the old ones filled the sky. Beings of pure energy, human and alien combined. The vision spoke in a voice that was both thunder and whisper. We are one creation, not divided by law but united by spirit. Ilara fell to her knees, tears in her eyes. Mira's small form surrounded by glowing light. Kelrith bowed his head, his voice trembling. This is the truth you feared. The truth my father hid. The old ones were not gods. They were us, united, the counselor shouted. Lies. Illusions, but his voice cracked with fear. Mira turned toward him, her voice soft but powerful. The planet remembers. The light from her hand touched the ground, spreading across the forest, reaching every tree, every stone, every being. The alien soldiers dropped their weapons, staring in awe as visions of their ancestors appeared. Human faces mixed with theirs, the same hearts, the same eyes. Kelrith stepped closer to the counselor, his tone calm. You built empires from hate, but truth cannot be buried forever. The counselor fell silent, his armor dimming, his power fading. What have you done? He whispered. Kelrith looked toward Ilara and Mira. I didn't do it. She did. The world glowed brighter, the air warm and alive. The ships in the sky powered down as their cores responded to the planet's call. For the first time in centuries, the weapons of war fell silent. Ilara held her daughter close, tears rolling down her cheeks. It's over, she whispered. Kelrith smiled faintly. No, it's just beginning. Sereth approached, bowing deeply. The council is broken. What happens now? Kelrith looked up at the sky, his voice calm. Now we rebuild, not as rulers and slaves, but as one people. He turned to Ilara, his gaze softening. You came here to save your daughter, but in doing so, you saved us all. Ilara smiled through tears. Maybe sometimes love is stronger than law. Kelrith reached out, gently touching Mira's shoulder. Your daughter carries the light of both worlds. She will be the bridge between them. Ilara looked at him, her voice quiet but full of warmth. And you? What will you do? He smiled sadly. I will guide them until they no longer need me. As dawn broke over Lethera, the silver trees shimmered in peace and the air was filled with a new song, not of war, but of unity. Ilara watched the rising sun beside Kelrith, their hands almost touching. No words were spoken, but both knew what had been lost and what had been found. The universe felt different now, lighter, freer, full of promise. And as the light of the twin suns touched their faces, Kelrith whispered softly, The law may have bound us, Ilara Ven, but it was love that set us free. The wind carried his words across the silver world, a final promise that echoed through time and stars alike. And in that moment, the story of a mother, a daughter, and an alien emperor became legend. A legend that would one day remind the galaxy that humanity, in all its weakness and strength, was never truly alone.